Order of operations. Yolanda is studying the lifespan of the mononucleosis virus, also known as mono. This virus is typically spread by kissing, sharing food, or sharing eating utensils with an affected person. So let us solve this equation for Yolanda. So when solving, we need to remember order of operations, which we have right below, right here. So we have P, which stands for parentheses. E is for exponents. M and D stand for multiply and divide. And then lastly, we have add and subtract. So now let's go back to our equation and look to solve it. So we notice that we don't have anything in the side the parentheses that we need to deal with, so we can cross that one out. But we do have exponents, which we need to work through. So we have 5/6 times 3/5 minus 1/5 raised to the second power was really just showing this in a simplified way. So we're going to multiply 1/5 times 1/5, which is equal to 1/25. So this equation becomes 5/6 times 3/5 minus 1/25. So we've dealt with our exponents. Now we need to look at multiply and divide, which you can see is right here. So when we deal with this multiplication, we can reduce before we even begin. We notice we have a 5 here and a 5 here. So let us cross these out as they both are equal to 1, because 5/5 is equal to 1. Now we see that we have a 6 and a 3, which share a common factor of 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So now we have this, which will become 1 times 1, which is 1. Now we have 2 times 1, which is 2. Then we have minus 1/25. So now when we do this final step of subtraction, we know we need to get a common denominator. So we need to find the least common multiple for this. So one way to do this would be just to simply multiply 25 on the top and bottom of this first term, and on the second term, we'll multiply 2 on top and bottom. This will get us to our least common multiple of 50. So this then becomes 1 times 25 is 25, 2 times 25 is 50, minus 1 times 2, which is 2, 25 times 2 is 50. So now we have a common denominator. So now we can actually do the subtraction problem. So 25 minus 2, which is equal to 23. And then we're going to keep the common denominator of 50. So this is our final solution. So let's look at another example. Example 2. Zachariah is determining the spread of tuberculosis in countries with a lack of medical resources. Solve this equation for Zachariah. So we look at this equation and remember that we have, we'll just jot this down, P for parentheses, E, multiply and divide, add and subtract. So when we go to this problem, we notice straight off the bat we do have a parentheses this time, because it's in the form of the absolute value sign. So we will need to subtract this. So we have 1/8 minus 1/4. So to do that problem, we need to have a common denominator. So for a common denominator, 4 can just be multiplied by 2 to get to 8. So we now have 1/8 minus 1 times 2, which is 2, 4 times 2, which is 8, and this gives us 1 minus 2, negative 1 over 8. So this is a great start. So now we can just go ahead and write this in. So let's go 3/4 plus the 1/2 raised to the second power divided by 1/2. And then in the absolute values, we have -1/8. Now remember, anything in the absolute value will become positive. So that will be changed to a positive 1/8 in the next step. So in this also the next step, we need to look to see what we need to do. So we done with the parentheses. Now we need to do exponents. So let's go ahead and address the exponents. So we see we have a 1/2 that needs to be addressed. So let's go ahead and do this. We have 3/4, and we're just going to do this right here. 1/2 times 1/2, which is equal to 1/4, because 1 times 1 is the 1. 2 times 2 is 4. So let's go ahead and take this and then bring it in. So we have plus 1/4. And we're going to divide by 1/2. And we're just going to make this absolute value sign go away. So we'll just go ahead and make this -1/8 now positive. So remember, now we are done with the exponents. So we're going to have to multiply and divide. So we can see that we have a multiplication right here, and then we're going to have a division sign right here. So let's first deal with the multiplication. So we have 3/4 plus 1/4 divided by, and we're going to multiply this here first. So 1 times 1 is equal to 1. 2 times 8 is 16. So now we have this first multiplication. Now we can look at our division. And so as we remember, when we divide fractions, we can change it into multiplication by changing the division into the multiplication sign and then taking the reciprocal of this second term. So this equation now becomes this. We have 3/4 plus 1/4 times, I'm taking the reciprocal, so it's 16/1. And then we can do this multiplication problem. But before we do that, we can actually reduce. So here we have this 4 here and a 16 here, which share a common factor of 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. 16 divided by 4 is 4. So if we go, we'll just make space right here. So this equation now becomes 3/4, and we're going to go 1 times 4, which is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. And then we have this final last step to do, which is addition. So like with subtraction earlier, we need a common denominator. So we have 1 and we have 4. And so common denominator for the least common multiple for both of them would be 4. So we would just actually need to change the second term in order to create the same common denominator. So we can go ahead and put a 4 here and a 4 here. This way we get a common multiple of 4 for the least common multiple. So here we have then 3/4 plus 4 times 4, which is 16. 1 times 4 is 4. So now we do this addition. We just add the numerators as we leave the denominator as 4. So 3 plus 16 is 19. So this is our final solution to this problem.